Buy, sell or rent your property with Century 21 and you could win a brand new 2-bedroom apartment on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. Visit c21prize.co.nz for your chance to win.
Welcome back to Your Property Empire. Well, joining me on the show tonight is John Mansamelli from Hunterwood Solutions, and we've just been joined by Charles Tarbey, Chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia. Well, during the week we had an email in from Jane in Darwin, and she asked, I've maxed out on my borrowing capacity, and so I wanted to look at using my superannuation to buy my next property. How easy is it to set up a self-managed super fund to borrow from the banks, and are there any downsides? So, Charles, maybe I'll ask you to start with.
Well, cost.
Are many people, I guess the first question to start with, are many people using self-managed super funds?
I think a lot more people would like to learn how to use them. I certainly have one, and I manage it and go through the process. So when you're buying property, it's a little bit more complicated. When you've got to set up a bare trust to buy your property, because you've got to have that buffer between the property, you and the bank. Somehow I don't know how they work it out, John, but it's there, and it is more expensive. It's certainly more expensive annually when you're getting your reports done and so on. But apart from that, I've got total control over what I do in my super fund, and a lot of people will tell you that they think I've been paying into it for years. I don't know why it's so low, and they've just got absolutely no control over it. And in some cases,
I'm buying shares, and the share market's going down, and all that kind of. We won't bag Mr. Switzer on the shares. He'll be on later on, so we've got to be careful what we say.
Very careful. Very smart man.
So, John, from a mortgage broking perspective, obviously you're going to tell straight away if someone's managing or buying stuff within super. Do you see quite an increase? Because how long ago was it that the rules actually changed?
Well, in 2007, the government announced plans where you can now buy property in a self-managed super fund. But I thought it was quite interesting statistic came out the other day that Australia now has the 4th largest super fund in the world in terms of volume. Now, that's an extraordinary statistic. We're, 23 million people? We've got the 4th largest super fund, and there's a whole stack of money sitting there. Now, when people do buy in super, what I read was that the majority of it goes into commercial property, which I found
for all the REITs and things like that.
I just thought that's incredible. So it must be your plumbers buying their warehouses in their super fund and things like that. So a small proportion is going into residential, and then even a smaller proportion of borrowing, which is a great opportunity for me as a mortgage broker. All right, but as a mortgage broker, it's a little bit more sophisticated. I encourage by 100%, 300% clients to look at it, because why would you not want to pay capital gains tax down the track? Why wouldn't you want to have more control in it? So there's an amazing opportunity sitting there for the everyday Australian. And it's not that hard. It's so long as you surround yourself with the 3 main professionals. Good financial planner, he give you advice that that your super strategy is good. It's not investing in ostrich farms. An accountant, okay, who can help write up the appropriate deed. All right, and then obviously a good mortgage broker, because the lenders are pulling back in that space.
And
obviously real estate.
There you go.
Good real estate agent to find you that property.
I was just wondering when we were going to get in there. It's 3, we've gone to 4. The commercial side of super funds or self-managed super was made easy a few years ago in super fund to buy commercial when residential wasn't quite the norm, and they were still restructuring the process. So they made it very, very easy years ago, and I did take advantage of that and roll properties into the super fund. There was that window of opportunity to do that. So that's probably why that balance is out of whack, but a lot more people are buying. Some people are buying in the super fund and they shouldn't be. They're buying holiday homes that they might rent out, but they're using them, and there's
trying to do some scam. And certainly, I think ASIC's on top of all these first scams and the rest of it. I mean, you're an employer and you represent a lot of employers through your agencies. I guess for the typical person, most of them aren't going to have the knowledge themselves how to do it. They do need to find those advisors to help.
They do, and collectively, if we had our own super fund, as an example, if I had, so there's 2,000 people working in and out of the business at any one time, and if they all contributed $10 a week into a fund that we were managing collectively, it would be amazing what we could do from a real estate perspective. But I tried to do that back in the 70s and 80s with employees before super was there, and put them in, and there's all these reasons why they opted out. They needed this, they're going on a holiday, they need to pull my money out, and it just became a nightmare to try and manage, which is why I think self-managed super funds can be problematic for some people.
So how easy are you finding it to borrow from the banks at the moment with self-managed, and are you paying higher rates, and are there a lot of rules around it? Yeah,
so the first part of the question is, how easy is it? Some of the lenders have pulled back completely. All right. And so, yes, because of all the APRA regulations saying, hey, we don't want as much money going into investment lending, so they pulled out completely. Having said that, if you're dealing with a broker who's got 20-odd lenders on their panel, it's quite easy for you to find a solution in that space. All right? And then what the lenders are looking for is regular contributions, is 9% going in. So if you're self-employed and not putting the 9% in, there might be an issue there. They're also looking at the rental yield and things like that. So it's doable, but again, it goes back to the concept of trying to find someone who specialises in that space to make it a lot easier, because it's a little bit convoluted, but definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, a lot. Sorry, Chris. A lot of banks are amortising as well. They're looking for you to reduce the debt progressively, which I found very interesting. A number of banks have put suburbs on their postcodes, whether it's just general residential or through your super fund, where their loan value ratio is required to be a lot higher in terms of deposits. So, and then there's community title where they won't lend more than 50%. So there's a whole bunch of things, parameters you need to look at really closely around it, and super gets a little bit tough in those areas.
So look, certainly there is a lot of opportunity around self-managed super funds, but there's also a lot of dangers. So obviously check out any advisors that you're using, and obviously try and get someone as honest as possible if you can find them out there. Well, for more ideas on investing in property, no matter whether it's in super or outside, you can always download a copy of my book for free. Just go to yourempire.com.au. And also, if you've got a question for us, we'd love to get it. Just send your details to chris@yourempire.com.au. Now, Charles, we still haven't gotten the figures out at the moment. The market doesn't really open till Australia Day, does it? That's behind us.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty much. There are some stats out, but nothing really meaningful. There's a lot more terms of auctions coming up, or there've been a few bigger ones on the weekend, but it's really starting to ramp up now. And all the auctioneers I'm speaking to spoke to another chapter. I'm not sure what Tom said, but I know he said last week he's booked out till March, April already, or thereabouts. And another chap who runs a very substantial auction business today, he said he just can't believe the amount of stock that's come up in the number of auctions. So we're all only hoping that it doesn't dry up. But the stats are indicating that the clearance rates are still very strong, and the stock levels are starting to climb, and that's the big one we always look for.
So certainly we're going to have to wait and see. John, I guess a lot of the demand for property is going to be based around whether people can borrow. As Charles mentioned before, is a lot of the banks that are assessing people at higher rates. How do you find things at the moment? And is there a big difference between maybe the four big banks and the other lenders?
Yeah, you've got out-of-cycle rate rises. You've got banks with different assessment rates. And it's an interesting question that you pose, Chris, because a lot of clients come in saying, I can't afford that in Sydney $800,000 mortgage. And yet, when they go apply to a bank, they realise, hey, hang on, I'm having real difficulty borrowing. And that's because a lot of lenders are assessing you at 7% instead of 4%.
And principal and interest versus interest only.
Yeah. So whilst you know that you can afford it, the banks are saying, look, we're going to stress test you here at 7%, 7.5%. And so you might jump online to these out-of-date calculators and see that you can borrow it, but when it gets applied right now with an up-to-date calculator internally, it doesn't come through. And so in addition to that, they're paring back some of the rentals in some of the suburbs that Charles just alluded to. There's some black spots in various parts of the country. They're also upping some of the expenses associated with running.
Even in Sydney. They've got black spots in Sydney now, which I found
really crazy. I just don't understand that.
Perth, I understand. They've had some issues there. Even Bank West had suburbs in Perth they wouldn't lend to, and they are from Western Australia. But there were suburbs in Sydney that they've blacklisted, and I thought, wow, this is really...
But again, going back to 2000, they were doing places like Pyrmont, where there was thousands of apartments. So I assume it's the Alexandrias, the Zetlands.
You would think so, but Marylands was one of the suburbs which I found quite strange as well. I mean, there are some apartments going up through there. That's a very strong suburb.
Well, we've done a lot of granny flats in that area, so all of a sudden, I'm a reflection of some of the brokers doing granny flats, so that might be an issue there with vacancy rates.
Yeah. Right, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the show this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. And just a reminder to get a copy of John's ebook, just SMS your first name, space, and then your email to 0459 777 777. Until next week, I'm Chris Gray. Good night.
The information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Guests appearing on the program may have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment, insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.